Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Tuesday, the 13th day of February, year of our Lord 2018, welcome to the John Moore Show. Okay, I just recalled that we're going to have a news tip of the day. And, the news tip of the day, and without breaking headlines, is it looks like Israel is making some combat missions over Syria. They've had one plane shot down. This is very alarming, very disturbing. The last time Israel had a plane shot down in combat, I believe, was 1982, if I remember correctly. So it's something to pay attention to and be aware of. Prep tip of the day. I want to encourage everybody to, for your team, to have at least 2 government issue, military issue ponchos for each team member. 2 ponchos for each team member. You want to get carried away, we'll get 3. But seriously, one of the things about going out into the bush on a field operation, whether it's a day or 30 days, and I've done both, any piece of equipment that can be used for more than one purpose is highly, highly valued. Highly valued. And by the way, we're going to have open lines this hour. And since Leon Green is in Europe skiing with his son, we're not expecting he will call in. If he does, we will certainly take his call and bring Leon on board, and he can bring us up to date on how the snow is doing there in Europe. But in the meantime, we'll have open lines here at Republic Broadcasting, and the call number is 800-313-9443. Government issue ponchos. They're great. They come in different colors. I like the woodland camouflage pattern myself for my area. It works really good. There's olive drab. They may have one in a desert camouflage now. I really, quite frankly, haven't checked. I don't live in the desert, so it's not an issue for me. When I go out into the bush on an operation, if it's going to be something that's going to take a while, I always have 2 ponchos with me. And that's what I use to build my shelter. I put one on the ground for a ground cloth, and take the little hood that you use to put over your head, tie that off with a piece of parachute cord or braided twine. I like braided twine because it can be lighter and take up less space. Tie that up about 3 feet off the ground, 3.5 feet. 4 feet's kind of pushing it. And then tie the 4 corners out, stretched out about, say, a foot off the ground. And then you've got your shelter. It's not the best shelter, no, but it will keep the rain off, assuming the rain's not blowing too hard. Then that brings up the topic of how you're going to sleep. Well, that can be an issue. Going out into the field, if you're using everything, carrying everything in a rucksack, backpack, a sleeping bag takes up a lot of space and weighs a lot. On one hand, on the other, you need to sleep. I don't care how tough you are, you need to sleep. And the better sleep you get, the better off you're going to perform. So let's just start with the beginning. If you're in an area where there's conifers, that would be pine trees, cedar trees, that kind of tree, cutting off those needles and making a mattress out of those works out really nice. The government issue sleeping pad works really nice. Now, it's not so much a matter of comfort, which obviously is comfortable, and you want to be comfortable, but the main reason is to insulate your body, because if you sleep right on the ground or just have a ground cover like that poncho, that ground will suck the heat right out of your body. I'm serious. It will suck the heat right out of your body, even in the summertime. So you need to have insulation between your body and the ground. You need to break the wind. Now, that ground cloth, of course, it doesn't have to be spread on the ground. You can wrap yourself up in it. The military issue poncho liner is helpful. It's not the warmest, but down to about say 50 degrees or so, you'll be somewhat comfortable. Which brings me to the topic of space blankets. Now, I've never, unless you slept with a space blanket, you don't know what you're in for. I have. I was on a little training operation back in the early 70s, would have been probably the summer of 72. And it was warm weather, and I thought, well, I'll just take one of these newfangled. Now, at the time, a space blanket was really new. They were just the hot item back then. So I took a space blanket with me, and I thought, well, it's summertime. It's not going to be that cold. I'll just wrap up in this thing, and I'll be okay. Well, I did wrap up in it, and I woke up in the morning, and I found out something I'm about to communicate to you. Something I hadn't thought about in quite a while before that. The human body, a healthy adult male or female, is going to give off at least a pint, maybe close, somewhere between a pint and a quart of water will be expelled by your body through the pores of your skin overnight. Normally, we sleep with cotton sheets and that kind of thing that allow that water vapor just to pass on through, and you never even know it, unless you're sweating, of course. That doesn't happen with a space blanket. That water that comes out of the pores of your skin condenses on the space blanket because it can't get out. And I woke up in that morning and after sleeping in the space blanket, basically soaking wet from that moisture condensing on the inside of the space blanket. Very, very uncomfortable. It took a good 2+ hours, maybe closer to 3, of we got up, we had a cold breakfast, and we got back on the march. And for my body heat to dry out my clothes, very, very uncomfortable. And in a really cold situation, hypothermia would have been an issue very quickly. So space blankets, they do insulate you, but you need something between you and the space blanket. The military issue poncho would probably be fine. The water vapor would pass through the poncho and condense on the inside of the space blanket, so you would have that poncho between you and a space blanket to keep your body from getting wet. Another good use for the space blanket, and we'll get back to the ponchos in a moment, is protection from thermal imaging devices. The Taliban have been using them now for, 14, 15 years? Closer to 18 years. When did we invade Afghanistan? 2001, 2002, so 16, 17 years. They've been using space blankets as a countermeasure to our very expensive, high-tech thermal imaging devices mounted on aircraft, and handheld too, as far as that goes. Getting back to ponchos, obviously the first intended use for a poncho is to be used as a poncho, because it's that's what they're designed to do. There are companies, I think U.S. Cavalry may be one, that makes a version with an extended apron on one side of the poncho, so that when you got it looped over your backpack, the back of your legs doesn't get soaking wet. That's a nice improvement there, and I believe that, I hope they're still doing this, that U.S. Cavalry is also making ponchos that are more secure and meant to be better suited to sleeping with, because they seal up better when you got them snapped together. They have snaps all around the edges, so you can snap them together to make a sleeping bag. You can snap them together to make a shelter. One of the operations I was on with Special Forces, every man had two ponchos, and we would get together in groups of 2, 4, 6, 8, or even sometimes 1 or 2 more, and snap these ponchos together, use parachute cord to tie them and secure them to trees and stakes, and make a shelter with these. The guys I was with, there was our intelligence section, I believe there were 4 of us, so we had 8 ponchos, and we built a little lean-to shelter, which, as it turns out, was facing the wrong direction because the prevailing winds came from the direction that it was open. And it rained almost every night. We were in the forest in North Carolina. They're not a Gila National Forest. That first really good rain, my sleeping bag got soaked from about the knees down. It took more than a week for it to dry out. In the meantime, the supply sergeant issued me a couple of blankets. But they make pretty good shelters. They're not the best, but they're pretty good field expedient shelters, as we would say. So ponchos have numerous uses out in the field. We made. I recall we had a latrine where the men could relieve themselves, and ponchos were staked out as a privacy shield, privacy curtain, so the men could relieve themselves and have just a little bit of privacy using the hand-dug latrines that we had built around our facility for sanitation purposes. I'm a big fan of the woodland camouflage, whether it's a poncho or a uniform. I think it's, in my opinion, the best camouflage the military's ever come up with. Why they abandoned it, I don't know. They were trying this digital camouflage stuff for a number of years, which was supposed to confuse digital imaging, but did little to confuse the human eye, which is mostly what you're dealing with our third world enemies, which almost never have digital imaging. If we're up against the Russians and Chinese, they're probably going to have digital imaging, but even then, majority of the time, your adversary is just going to be human eyes, not digital imaging. So, the woodland pattern. I've noticed also that the U.S. Air Force, their current uniforms, I was having a lunch with my wife when we were up on our trip to visit my daughter, and we were stopped for lunch in a town that had a big Air Force base, a bunch of Air Force guys in there. I'm looking at these uniforms, and I'm thinking to myself, that looks awfully familiar. And then it occurred to me, it was a version of Tiger Stripe, which was originally, I believe, implemented by the French Foreign Legion. We're using Tiger Stripe uniforms during the Indochina War. And it was a bit, shall we say, stylized, and the pattern was not all that distinct. The colors were muted, kind of light browns, I would say. Light browns with slightly darker browns, but it was a Tiger Stripe pattern, and that kind of surprised me that the U.S. Air Force would go to a Tiger Stripe camouflage, as if they even need camouflage in the first place. But yeah, the Air Force. God bless the Air Force. We need them, don't we? One of the things that I know is going to happen whenever I'm training a bunch of civilians to go on a field training exercise, one of the things I can count on is almost all civilians, almost all the time, will pack more stuff than they can possibly carry. This is what happens. Men and women who mean well, they have good intentions, they want to go out into the field with everything that they could ever possibly need, and they do. At least they think they're going to. So I don't try to correct them, because they have to find out for themselves. If they want to pack up all that heavy stuff, then go for it, and let them try to keep up with me, because I when I'm going out into the bush, I travel light. And if they can keep up with me and carry all that stuff, God bless them, that's great. But typically they're not. After the first mile or two, especially if we're going up and down these hills here in the Ozarks, they're going to have second thoughts about all the wonderful latest gadgets and supplies and whatever else they might have brought. The value of it. The value of it diminishes very quickly with every step you take uphill. And carrying 50 pounds on your back uphill gets old really quick. I mean, it really gets old really quickly. And anything you can do to save weight and save bulk, you're going to do it, unless you're willing to pay the price. Now, if you're a really big guy who has good muscle tone and so forth, you can carry that extra weight and cause no harm. But even then, what I've noticed also, the bigger the guy, the more stuff they want to carry. That seems to be ubiquitous. So if you are planning going on a field training exercise, and that's going to entail carrying everything you need on your back with one trip, as opposed to back and forth to a truck or a car, well, think carefully about what you really need and what you don't need. You can't get away from the weight of water. That's not going to change. The food you're going to need, well, dehydrated food or freeze-dried food, it's going to take up less space and weigh a lot less on one hand. On the other, you're going to need water for both of those to be able to eat them. Comfort items, well, be frugal. Be frugal with those comfort items. Here's an item, piece of equipment that I really like, and I always make sure I've got enough for my team members. That's the 5-quart collapsible canteen, 5-quart bladder canteen. Typically, I don't care for stuff made in Korea, but the ones made in Korea actually are mil-spec. It's a heavy plastic liner inside a green fabric container that you can fill up with water. Now, 5 quarts of water is a lot. That's a lot of weight. That's about 8 gallons or so. 8 pounds is what I meant to say. About 8 pounds. Now, you come to a stream and you need to cross. It's you think maybe over your head. You can empty out the water, blow it up with air, and you've got a flotation bladder, and you can use it for a pillow. So there's 3 great uses right there. Here's our break. Call numbers: 800-313-9443. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Thank you. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 13th of February. Oh, just about wrapped up the second week of the month, haven't we? Tomorrow will be the end of the second week. I was just thinking the other day that I've never gone camping as a recreational sport. I've never done that, ever. I've spent as long as a month continuously in the bush, sleeping outdoors with primitive shelter, poncho snapped together. The month of June in Nottahala National Forest, it's a beautiful month if you have decent sleeping accommodations indoors. But if you're sleeping outdoors every night with a couple of ponchos for shelter, it can be pretty rough. No, I've never gone camping as a recreational event ever, and quite frankly, have no intention of doing so. But I've spent many nights on training operations with tents or ponchos or no shelter at all, doing whatever I need to do as part of a training operation. I know for many people, camping is a recreational activity, and I respect that. If that's what you enjoy doing, by all means, you should do it. I have no desire or intention to ever go camping as a recreational sport myself. But God bless those who want to and enjoy it. They should absolutely do that. But I have learned a lot on these training operations, an awful lot. What it takes to be comfortable, what it takes to get by, to have proper field sanitation when there's no running water, and so forth. I know I've never been to a deer camp, but I've talked to men who spend 2 weeks a year in a deer camp during deer season, the gun season usually. Sanitation is regarded as an optional activity for many men in these deer camps. They don't shave, they don't bathe. Hopefully they wash their hands and brush their teeth. I don't know what they do, quite frankly, but bathing and shaving is something typically doesn't take place in these deer camps. That was not optional for us in the military. We were expected to be properly shaved and groomed every morning, despite having no running water, cold or hot. I recall the first morning I had to shave out in the bush there in Notahela National Forest. I came to realize very quickly, oh, John, you forgot something. You forgot a mirror. So that became a high priority. We had the opportunity to go down to the local town there, and I was able to purchase a small mirror that I could use for shaving. And it's amazing how something that small and insignificant can mean so much. I had my little area to take care of personal hygiene set up behind our shelter. I got a number 10 can from our cook and rinsed it out. I kept the fresh water in that and made a little device where I could tilt it and pour out a little bit at a time just by using one hand. And then I used my helmet, the steel helmet, not the liner, used my steel helmet as the basin to wash my face and shave and so forth, wash my whole body, obviously. And it worked out pretty good, especially after I got a mirror and could hang up a mirror up on the small tree that a couple other things were attached to. About once every 3 days, we got to go down to town. We had permission from the local community to use the locker room facility underneath the baseball stadium where they had cold running water, and we could take a cold water shower, which we thought was great, that we could take a cold water shower and get cleaned up a little better than bathing out of a helmet. We really felt refreshed and energized after a cold water shower there in the little locker room underneath the baseball stadium of that little community. It was cold every night. We brought our field jackets with us, and those field jackets really felt good, getting zipped up. And our entertainment in the evening was we had a 16 millimeter movie projector and 3 movies for the whole month. Let's see, what were they? Cool Hand Luke. Let's see, this film about Russia. I'm blanking out on the name of it. Russia in the wintertime. I remember it really being cold. And one other movie, and we rotated them every 3 nights. We got a caller on hold here. We got Rick in Missouri. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, John. Yeah, cold water showers are exhilarating. Thanks, Doc Myers. I'll be right here.
Hold on through the break, Rick. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our Energy Cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an Energy Cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the Energy Cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the Energy Cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 13th of February. My website is libertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. Lots of things there at my website. Things that will educate you and inform you, entertain you. Free downloads, fascinating free downloads. Let's just click on that real quick and look at some of the stuff there. Let's see what we got.
What?
Thermal imaging, thermography, pack animals in support of special operations, Matrix 3, Volume 2. That's a 1,000-page book. You can buy used copies on Amazon for $300. Lots of stuff there that you can download and have in your private personal library. And, of course, also my website, you'll find energy cleaners for sale. Marvelous healing devices. We're going to have Dr. Joe on Thursday, talking a little bit about the energy cleaners he uses, and he's a medical doctor, and he and I are talking about how to incorporate these into his practice. If you have pain issues, whether it's arthritis pain or joint pain, the energy cleaner will help. Get yourself an energy cleaner. Keep in mind I have a 90-day money-back guarantee, and be sure you get a mattress pad to go with it. That's the most a comfortable way to make use of the energy cleaner. Only $285 shipping included for the energy cleaner. You can buy them right at my website at thelibertyman.com. Keep in mind, I do take PayPal as well as MasterCard and Visa. And our toll-free order line, 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Call number is 800-313-9443. And Rick, what was your comment, sir?
Oh, yeah. Well, a couple things. Dr. Joe, interesting guy. I believe he keeps a copy of Mother Teresa's poem, Do It Anyway, in his kitchen. He was also telling me a story on Tim Spencer's show about I think it was a kid, they saved from a infection using penicillin G. I was talking about how rapidly these things morph, and apparently this bacteria or a superbug had morphed so quickly that it completely had forgotten how to fight Pen G because nobody used it in so long. Fascinating story. It was really a cool story. I wanted to say a couple things. Last week I was talking a little bit about horizontal hives, and I think what I'm going to do is buy a couple of this Russian doctor's hives, the ones that actually collect free bees, and then while that's going on, I'll make a couple of my own if I happen to be, and I have to talk to Tim Spencer. If I'm on Saturday morning, I think I would talk about beekeeping a little bit. There are a couple of very interesting books. One is very simple. It's written by a monk. Some of these people tend to overcomplicate this. I mean, bees are going to do what bees are going to do. To me, it's kind of like the notion that a woman has to be in a hospital to have a baby. Really, you almost can't stop it. Bees are kind of along the same lines, I think. Bees are going to make honey. I don't care what you think, as long as you don't get in the way. But the one thing I actually did want to mention, right now would be the time, winter's ending, all these people like Lowe's and Home Depot, and this is kind of with regard to this carrying stuff you were talking about, they're start selling all of the fleece hats and gaiters it starts at half and 2/3 off, and they will be selling these wonderful gaiters, neck gaiters, and fleece hats for $2. I don't know if I'll buy anymore. I've got way more hats than I only know so many people that have heads and necks, so I might be like overstocked. So I don't know if I can, but I don't want everybody to miss out on these wonderful deals. These things are like 10, 12, $15 during the season, but soon they're right now they're at $4. So you might want to buy a few and then see if they knock them down to $2. And then I think also on Tim Spencer's show, he also mentioned he wanted to do winemaking, so one of these days we might do that too. All
right.
That's all I wanted to mention today. I appreciate it. Good show today.
Okay, Rick.
Thank you.
Appreciate the call. Thank you, sir. The call number is 800-313-9443. We got a question off air about ammunition boxes. I'm a big fan of military issue ammunition boxes. I am not of the aftermarket that they're being sold out there, plastic. Typically what you find is the rubber grommet that goes around the top there to make a good seal is not, it just doesn't work. Usually it's too short. They'll leave a gap. And that gap, whether it's, no matter how small it is, if there's a gap in there, it will not get a watertight seal. It can't. You're gonna spend a little more on the military issue. So they cost more. They're heavier. Now, if you do buy one, if you can buy one that's been used once, military, typically they use them once and then they go into the surplus pile. Find one that's not bent up, is not rusting, open it up, make sure it opens and closes without undue effort. And take a good look at that rubber seal on the mil-spec ones, on the military issue ones also, to make sure that the rubber seal is there, that it's not damaged, that it makes that there's no gap in it anywhere. It makes a good tight seal when you close it up, and if it is meets all those criteria, then you've got an ammunition box that will last for many years, as long as it's not damaged or abused. So best place to get them, what's the best place? Gun shows. If you there are some dealers who specialize in them, believe it or not. I've seen some at gun shows and at these preparedness expos both, where the entire display will be nothing but ammunition boxes, ranging from the small 30 caliber ones all the way up to really good size ammunition boxes meant for artillery shells and small rockets and so forth. Typically, they'll make you a deal if you want to buy a bunch of them. They will discount them. If you wait until the last, say 2 hours of the show or so, they'll make you a really good deal rather than pack up all that bulky, heavy stuff and take it home with them. So that's, if you want to get the best bargain. If the gun show ends on Sunday afternoon, I would walk up to that table maybe 2 hours before closing or so and see what kind of deal you could cut. You'll probably get a really good deal. We've got a caller on hold here. We've got Jerry in Chicago. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, John. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I was interested in a mattress pad, but when I went to your website to inquire about one, they asked me for my email address, and I got something like, this email address doesn't exist.
Okay. Are you using a telephone or a computer?
You know what? I was using my phone.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably the issue. We've been working to try to make our website more friendly for telephones, but it's set up to be used for computers, PCs, and laptops. I think
okay,
if you,
I'm glad you told me that.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I'll try it again then.
okay, sounds good. Thank you for the call, Jerry. Yeah,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
we're in the infancy of getting all this stuff to work together here as a nation, as a world, and we do, we do the best we can. So yeah, and I've had Jerry's not the first guy. I've had several people, they attempt to use a telephone to navigate my website with mixed results. But we're working on it, and hopefully it will get better. Yeah. Well, one of the advantages of going to the field with the Army, if you're on a big field training exercise, is they take care of some of the stuff for you, like making sure you've got all the potable water that you need. So that's a relief, because we didn't have to go searching for water and be filtering water and so forth. Field kitchen was set up. We had 3 excellent meals a day, open air dining facility with kind of a picnic bench arrangement, things that we could sit on and have our meals. That was really good. We didn't have to eat sea rations. They didn't have MREs back then. Didn't have to eat the sea rations. During the day, when I was doing much of my work as an intelligence analyst, they had a hunting lodge that had been under construction and never finished. They had electricity run, windows, doors, floors, ceilings, and all that, but no running water. Nothing was finished. It was just rough interior, and we were allowed to set up our headquarters in there, and the intelligence section had a couple of rooms set off to one side. We were not allowed to sleep in there. That was prohibited. But it was nice to have some administrative space that was out of the weather, at least during the day. And in the evenings, I guess they wanted to keep the ambiance up. The movies were set up on the front deck, which was all open to the outside. So we'd be bundled up in our field jackets to watch these movies. It was the only thing to do. I guess if you brought a book or two with you, you could read a book, but we would all watch the movies and then get ourselves tucked in for the night. One of my jobs as an intelligence analyst or intelligence CO, I should say, with the Special Forces was to do target analysis. So we would go out and to the various targets, hydroelectric plants, bridges, dams, other critical infrastructure, airports, and we would take photographs and make drawings and take measurements to determine what it would take to destroy whatever it might be, a hydroelectric plant, a dam, a bridge, an airport, a utility, electric power utility substation, whatever it might be. We'd come back to our headquarters and draw up the plans with all the specifications of what it would take to destroy it. And then we would turn that information over to the A-team that was assigned to destroy the target. So I would do the briefing of the A-team. We'd have the A-team in isolation so they could not reveal any classified information. Brief them on what they would do, and they would go out. They would be gone for typically anywhere from 3 days to a week on the operation. And when they would get back from the operation, I would debrief them to determine how everything went, what went right, what went wrong, and so forth. Something we found out towards the end of our operation was the following. It wasn't long after we got there. This is a remote area. It's 10 miles from the nearest community where there's actually stores and a government and so forth. 10-mile drive down a 2-lane country blacktop road. Pretty remote area in the national forest. Not long after we got there, about the second day, these 2 very attractive young women, I must say, they were around maybe 19 years old, wearing Daisy Duke shorts and tight tops, revealing their very cute figures. drove up in a CJ Jeep, and they had in the back of the Jeep, they had a sealed tub full of soft drinks and ice, various things like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and so forth, Mountain Dew, and all kinds of little snacks and treats like potato chips and cookies and so forth. And they stopped at the front gate, and they had big smiles on their faces, and the guys gathered around to buy soft drinks and snacks from these girls. Towards the end of our operation, we were wondering what was going on and why our teams I was sending out were getting compromised and getting captured. It turned out those girls were the daughters of the opposition forces, and they were actually spies. Very pretty spies, by the way. And our guys would come out, and they would be actually in isolation, and they would figure out a way to get out of isolation in the isolation tent, go down to buy snacks, and they would brag to the girls about how they were going to be blowing up a hydroelectric dam. And then our guys would get captured along the way, and actually they were put in a prisoner camp by the opposition forces, which was another part of our overall group. So that was a learning experience, a very tough education for the guys who got captured, because it was humiliating and very unpleasant to be in the prisoner camp where you were barefoot, no shirt. You weren't allowed to touch the wire. If you did, you got your hand smacked with a axe handle. If you sat down or leaned against something, you got squirted with a hose. And it was very unpleasant for these men that got captured, but it was a good part of the training. We had a caller on hold here. We got Mark in Philadelphia. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, John. Appreciate you talking about your military experience. I want to bring something to your attention. I don't think I brought it to your attention before, but real briefly, I think I'm a veteran also, for the people that don't know that out there in listening land. What I'm going to bring to your attention, John, is that you're aware of this statistic that 21 veterans are committing suicide a day? Is that correct?
Oh, yes. I hear those numbers. Right.
Okay. So what I'd like to share with you, John, here, I'm in Philadelphia, and I have gone to the VA. I've been involved with the VA had been for a long time, and I was going for counseling, and they were prescribing me these drugs. Come to find out, and these drugs, by the way, were causing me extreme side effects, and so they try another one and another one, and basically what I was needing help with was depression.
Right.
So they were giving me these drugs called SSRIs. Okay.
Right.
Now it turns out that in my body they're absolutely dangerous to the point of causing suicidality or death because of toxicity. Because I happen to be a poor metabolizer of that class of drugs. I'm in 7% of the Caucasian population. Now, on the other extreme of metabolization, they're called ultra metabolizers. They're about 4 to 5% of the Caucasian population. So if you add up 7 plus 4, what does that give us? 11.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Tuesday, the 13th day of February, year of our Lord 2018. Welcome to the John Moore Show. Okay, I just recalled that we're going to have a news tip of the day, and the news tip of the day, and without breaking headlines, is it looks like Israel is making some combat missions over Syria. They've had one plane shot down. This is very alarming, very disturbing. The last time Israel had a plane shot down in combat, I believe, was 1982, if I remember correctly. So it's something to pay attention to and be aware of. Prep tip of the day. I want to encourage everybody to, for your team, to have at least 2 government issue, military issue ponchos for each team member. 2 ponchos for each team member. You want to get carried away, we'll get 3. But seriously, one of the things about going out into the bush on a field operation, whether it's a day or 30 days, and I've done both. Any piece of equipment that can be used for more than one purpose is highly valued. Highly valued. And by the way, we're going to have open lines this hour. And since Leon Green is in Europe skiing with his son, we're not expecting he will call in. If he does, we will certainly take his call and bring Leon on board, and he can bring us up to date on how the snow is doing there in Europe. But in the meantime, we'll have open lines here at Republic Broadcasting, and the call number is 800-313-9443. Government issue ponchos. They're great. They come in different colors. I like the woodland camouflage pattern myself for my area. It works really good. There's olive drab. They may have one in a desert camouflage now. I really, quite frankly, haven't checked. I don't live in the desert, so it's not an issue for me. When I go out into the bush on an operation, if it's going to be something that's going to take a while, I always have two ponchos with me, and that's what I use to build my shelter. I put one on the ground for a ground cloth, and take the little hood that you use to put over your head.
In the medical field to go to work, right? Now, here's the deal. From what I gather, and I'm bringing this to your attention, John, so you can further investigate and correct me if I'm wrong. From what I gather is that the majority of veterans that go to any VA facility go primarily for counseling. That would be the mental health clinic. That was a little surprise to me. I think the number's like 75%, three-fourths of the guys and gals. So the deal is, who's in charge of psychiatry? I mean, who's in charge of the mental health clinic? It's psychiatry. Now, before, which years ago, what I needed was counseling. But in order to get that counseling, I had to be diagnosed, and then they had to give me a drug. And that was the only kind of counseling I could get was with a psychiatrist, okay? And in the beginning, I believed that was maybe that would help me. Well, they put me at risk of death, okay? Now, I brought this to their attention recently because years ago I stopped going to the VA because these drugs kept giving me side effects. And when I bring it back to their attention, they would either downplay, deny, or even insinuate I was making the side effects up, John. Now, the deal is, because I'm in this class of poor metabolizer, my body lacks an enzyme, and my body can't even see those drugs. In other words, it can't process them. So even with a small dosage, it becomes toxic in my body very quickly. One of the drugs I took, Paxil, I lost 45 pounds in 5 weeks, and it was causing me extreme side effects. When I tried to bring this back to the attention of the psychiatrist I was seeing, she couldn't believe that I had those side effects. Well, on further investigation, in my own investigation, I found out that I was a poor metabolizer. Now I brought this information back to the VA, to one of their head psychiatrists, and he won't even hear of it. He takes little interest. And I say, why not do these tests for metabolization before you give any of these types of drugs to any of the guys or gals? Why not do a simple test to make sure that you're not giving it to somebody where it could cause suicide or even death because of toxicity? Why not do that simple test? Could they afford it? I'd say so. And if they really are concerned about the 21 veterans dying a day from suicidality, then they, why not do it? Why not err on the side, of caution?
Mark, we need to scoot here. We got a top of the hour break. We do thank you for your call, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, top of the hour break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 13th of February. Prepper tip of the day. I'll encourage you to make sure all your team members have a government-issue poncho, 2 each for each team member. Very useful piece of equipment. At some point in the future, you may be very glad that you did. Quick reminder, if you plan on going to Dallas at the end of March, go to my website, use the promotion code there to get a discount on the live presentation. I'll be the keynote speaker. And if you're going to be watching the video presentation, the promotion code gets you a discount there as well. I want to address something that Mark was talking about right toward the end of the hour. I know you're still listening, Mark. If you have issues with the VA hospital system, they encourage you to first go to the what they call chief of the service, and every hospital is going to have somebody with that title, chief of the service. And if you don't get what you're looking at, satisfaction there, then they have another person whose title is patient advocate. Patient advocate, and you can file an appeal for a review of your concern with a patient advocate. Now, going the next level higher than that would be the congressional committee that has oversight of the Veterans Administration. That's if you don't get satisfaction with the chief of service, if you don't get satisfaction with the patient advocate, if filing the appeal for your concern doesn't work, then by all means contact your congressman, your own congressman, and have your congressman contact the committee that takes care of Veterans Affairs on your behalf. Or you could contact them yourself as far as that goes. Dealing with the largest healthcare provider on the planet is quite a challenge, to say the least. Quite a challenge. It's the nature of most organizations and most people who work for most organizations to maintain status quo. So when you approach your doctor, which apparently that's as far as Mark got, he approached his own psychiatrist who was working with him and got no satisfaction. That's expected. The next step, and Mark apparently hasn't done that yet, is to figure out who the chief of service is and contact the chief of service with his concern and see if he gets satisfaction there. Now, that person's probably going to want to maintain status quo also. Then next up the line comes a patient advocate. Now, their job is specifically to address the concerns of the patient. If a verbal communication doesn't work, then you can file an appeal, which is a formal process to have your concern looked at by somebody. It's really not clear to me who would be looking at your appeal. Possibly the VA Office of Quality and Performance, maybe. It's a whole system they've got there with their own internal procedures and protocols that, as an outsider, is going to take a little bit of research to figure out who's connected to who reports to who, and how to work your way through that system in order to try to get satisfaction. Mark, your concerns are very thoughtful and well taken. Now, back when I was a young veteran, just back from Vietnam, what we were trying to do then was convince the Veterans Administration that there really was such a thing as post-traumatic stress, which has happened after every war. World War I, they called it shell shock. World War II, I think they called it combat fatigue, and in Korea the same way. Any man or woman who's been in continuous combat too long will suffer psychological distress as a consequence. That's a given. Of course you will. Everybody's got a breaking point, and everybody's got a limit to how much of that they can take before there's adverse consequences. So, Mark, I wish you well. I hope that answers your question. These chemicals are very powerful. The side effects are well known. It's kind of ironic that one of the main side effects of most of these antidepressants is they make you depressed and give you suicidal tendencies. So how ironic is that? It's a system we've set up that's causing these men and women are committing suicide. I believe, my personal belief, is largely as a consequence of these very powerful psychotropic drugs that they're being given. That's my belief. I might be wrong, but that's my belief based on mine looking into this matter. I've never been a patient of the VA, never had a single visit or interaction with the VA hospital system at all. I know many of my veteran friends do on a regular basis interact with the VA system, and for the most part, they're pretty satisfied with it. Tim Spencer has interacted with the VA system now for more than 3 decades with mixed results. Most recently, it appears that they didn't do the right thing for his injured ankle foot. When it got infected, they apparently didn't do a culture of the infected area, and as a consequence, he lost his foot, his leg just below the knee. Very tragic situation, but Tim is bouncing back. He has a positive mental attitude, which is incredibly important, and he will survive this matter. This morning we're talking about a number of different things. Obviously, if you got a question or comment, just give us a call at 800-313-9443. Being out in the field is a challenge. Everything's different. Electricity may or may not be available. Housing is pretty minimal. I would have dearly loved to have had one of those domes that we sell on my website. The dome structures are neat, and it's probably the best upgrade in housing for the military has had the inter-shelter domes in centuries, literally centuries. Soldiers have been using tents for shelter in the field, going all the way back to Roman times and even before. The tents that Romans had were basically not much different than the tents I had when I was in the military. The upgraded tents we're using now have a metal frame and a vinyl fabric, but they're still basically tents is what they are. So that would be having good shelter is a big deal. A good quality canvas tent with a liner can be, if it's set up properly, has good drainage, and is used in the way it was designed to be used, can actually be pretty comfortable. I've got a couple of them here, and I've got a canvas repair kit so that I can do repairs that will stand up to hard use. And if you do have canvas tents yourself, I suggest you create your own canvas repair kit. I keep mine in a ammunition box. How about that? Are you shocked and surprised? Hardly. Which includes extra canvas fabric, heavy shears to cut the fabric with, the sewing awl and the heavy stitching material to sew it up with, and then also periodically, if I'm using the tent very much, I will get a gallon of canvas fabric treatment to help protect the canvas from ultraviolet and so forth. Have extra ropes to make sure I got ropes to replace ones that are damaged or missing. We've got plenty of tent stakes around the ranch here that we've made ourselves. Keep everything out of the weather in a cool, dark place, and keep those tents ready for use whenever we need them. GP Medium is the one that the Army used the most back when I was in. It's a 16 by 32 foot tent. It's a nice sized tent. 16 by 32 feet is a good sized tent that a lot of men can have shelter in there. You can set up administrative space to do administrative work, have a medical clinic, have a dining facility. They have specific tents set up that are meant for kitchens, a field kitchen tent, for example. We've got one of those. They're specifically set up to have better ventilation and so forth for the kitchen equipment and the cooking. But a lot of guys that's all the shelter they had in Vietnam was a tent. I was very fortunate that in psychological warfare they rented a buildings for us. But many of the guys either had a tent with sandbags around it, that kind of thing. Primitive but effective. Primitive but effective. Out in the field, your transportation most of the time is going to be your feet. That's what's going to be most of the time, which brings us to foot gear. There's lots of things you can save money on, and I encourage people to save money. If you can buy things at flea markets, thrift shops, and so forth, I do that. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I go to thrift shops all the time. But there's one thing you can't save money on, at least not very effectively, and that's your foot gear. Good quality, high quality foot gear that's properly fitted for your feet, properly suited for the mission at hand. It makes all the difference in the world. I was very fortunate. One of my buddies bought a pair of Danner Gold Devil boots. That's the Fort Lewis boots. That's Danner, Danner, Delta Alpha, November, Echo Romeo. Now, in my opinion, based on my knowledge, Danner makes the best boots on the planet. Maybe there's some better ones, but I'm not aware of them. Seriously, that's how much I think of Danner boots. They make insulated boots, uninsulated boots. My buddy, he bought a pair of Danners that turned out to be slightly too small for him. And he says, John, check these out. They might be just right for you. And it turned out they were just right for me. So I bought them at a slight discount because they were used, of course. They haven't been used much. I think he walked maybe 1 or 2 days on them. And first time I put these Danner boots on, my feet were saying, thank you, thank you. That's how good they felt. Now, a good quality insert is important for your boots. Danner has an insert that comes with theirs. And I get custom inserts myself that I was introduced to those by my wife, Dr. Moore, at one of her chiropractic seminars that I was at. And in fact, I'll run in the next room and get my inserts during the next break so I can tell you what those are. It's a pretty neat process. The company representative has a machine you stand on. It's a very thick glass plate, so it can hold up 300 or 400 pounds if necessary, with a computer scanning device built into it. So you stand on this thing barefoot, and it scans your feet, and it customizes your insert for your foot, made from leather, by the way. This is critical, made with leather. Now, all the foot gear I wear day to day all has leather soles. My field boots, my Danners don't have leather soles. But the boots I wear all the time, day in, day out, both my cowboy boots and my dress shoes, all have leather soles. They do. This is important because we're electrical beings, and you need to be grounded. Rubber soles, man-made materials, they will insulate and not allow you to be grounded. It may not sound like a big deal, but as part of an overall healthy lifestyle is to wear foot gear, shoes and boots, and have leather soles so you be grounded. Now, it's going to make a bigger difference for some of you than others, but it will make some difference for everybody in a positive way to have foot gear that has leather soles. And I'm talking to my wife, Dr. Moore, I've learned that it's very difficult for women to find boots or shoes, either one, that have leather soles. They can be found, but it's difficult. And it may cost a little bit more, but hey, go for it. The difference is worth it. It really is. The difference is absolutely worth it. And once you got a good quality foot gear, you make sure you properly maintain it. Well, I don't know if you read Carlos Hathcock's autobiography, but I did. Carlos Hathcock was a Marine Corps sniper during Vietnam with more than 90 confirmed kills. He would come back from a three-day operation and be dirty and tired, and hungry and thirsty. And what's the first thing he does? He cleans his rifle and he cleans his gear. You take those boots off, you scrub them down with warm soapy water, get all that mud off the leather, and very importantly, listen carefully, out of the stitching, the welt, and the other stitching. Make sure that mud is out of the stitching. Let them air dry. You don't want to force dry the leather. That could cause damage, expose them to a bunch of heat. Once they're dried out, then you go back and take some warm snow seal and work it into all that stitching real deep with a toothbrush in your fingers. You won't hurt your fingers. Get that snow seal down that stitching real good. And let that dry out, buff it off, and then use your polish to finish it. If there's scratches, you want to go back and even before you put the snow seal on, and use the proper color leather dye to fill in the scratches. Then use your snow seal, and then use your polish. The polish helps protect the leather also. Here's our break. I'm going to run the next room and get those inserts so I can talk about those just a bit. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. All right, we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 13th of February. My website is libertyman.com. If you're going to Dallas, click on that banner for the Hear the Watchman Conference and to get the code to get a discount for the conference. I will be the keynote speaker there. Looking forward to see a lot of you there. Okay, I ran to the next room and I got one of these orthotic inserts here for my boots and shoes. The name of the company is Foot Levelers, just like it sounds. Their website is footlevelers.com. Footlevelers.com. Level like in level like carpenter's level. Footlevelers.com. I've got the insert here, orthotic in my hand. It's got these different bumps built into it specifically to meet the needs of my feet. It's all leather, custom made, just for my foot. You're going to have to go to one of their dealers that has the special computer machine set up to have this thing customized for your foot. But I would encourage you and everybody on your team to do that, quite frankly. It'll be part of overall health to have both the proper leather orthotic inserts for your boots and shoes, as well as, of course, boots and shoes that have leather soles. It may sound like it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. That's what you need. I've got boots. When I went back in the Army in 1979, I was issued a couple of pairs of black leather combat boots. I still have them. They're old, they're beat up, but they're still something I can wear around the ranch here, doing different jobs. When I want to wear a pair of leather boots, which I wear leather boots almost all the time, by the way, and to go out there to work around the ranch, I slip these on. The shoestrings are made from parachute cord, and I'll get out there and do whatever needs to be done using the chainsaw or running the Kubota tractor, doing carpenter work, working on the rifle range. At the end of the day, I make sure those boots are properly cared for. Once again, it would be, 39 years I've had these boots. And put them away so they're ready for the next time. And good quality footgear, properly taken care of, there's no reason why they can't last for decades. No reason at all. As long as they don't have any damage that can't be repaired. One pair of my cowboy boots, I just took them to, I found an excellent repair shop, and they had to almost completely rebuild them. But they did, and they look good. They're very comfortable and ready for daily use once again. Most shoes that most people buy these days can't be repaired. And they're so cheap you wouldn't want to spend the money to get them repaired anyway. If you look at what's being sold at the big box stores like Walmart, for example, very few, if any, of those shoes are worthy of being repaired or can be repaired. They're just meant to be worn and thrown away at the end of the day. That's just simply the nature of our society and where it's going. Very tragic. But all your equipment needs to be properly cared for. If you've got knives, axes, saws, hammers, anything that's got metal, they need to be protected from rust. If it has a sharp edge on it, the edge needs to be maintained. You're going to you're going to make the tool dull by normal usage. If you have a machete and hit a rock with it, you're going to nick the blade. You want to grind that nick out, for example. I'm a big fan of machetes. It's a very useful tool. On the A-team I was on, all of us were required to buy our own machete out of our own private funds. The Army didn't issue them for the A-team. So I bought a very nice Collins machete with a 24-inch blade, and I've still got that. And in fact, I made a custom sheath for it out of leather. It's very nice also. But that machete is something you use a lot out in the field, at least around here, where in the summertime, these woods get as thick as any jungle that you'd ever want to see. It can be pretty amazing, especially when you're near water, how thick these forests can get around here in the Ozarks. And the Ozarks isn't the only place where it happens, but it does happen here a lot. I was just looking at the edge of this foot leveler insert here, and how the inside of the heel is considerably higher than the outside. And knowing how I walk, that makes sense. It helps a lot. Here's our break. Call number is 800-313-9443.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2007. 16. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 13th of February. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. Not too long, just a few weeks, I'll be in Dallas for the Hear the Watchman conference. Great lineup of speakers. I know a few of these men and women, not many of them. Many I know by reputation. And I'm looking forward to it. I will be the keynote speaker there. You click on the banner at my website at thelibertyman.com, the Hear the Watchman banner, and use the promotion code to get $20 off the conference rate or 20% off the live stream rate. So it'd be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of you there. Also, my website, of course, are energy cleaners for sale. This is my home business. I sell energy cleaners. My friend Tom Berryhill manufactures energy cleaners. If you have joint pain or arthritis pain, back pain, what in the world are you waiting for? Are you taking pain meds? That's not good. Read about the side effects on those pain meds. Pretty scary. So get yourself an energy cleaner and get healed from the pain. Not getting a great night's sleep, get yourself an energy cleaner and get a great night's sleep every night, like I do. In fact, I need to change out my batteries on one of my energy cleaners today. I change the batteries once a year. The energy cleaner is only $285, shipping included to American zip codes, and I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee on the energy cleaner. That's what I do, a 90-day money-back guarantee on the energy cleaner. Most new purchasers these days are getting a factory-made fitted mattress pad right at the get-go, rather than try to make one out of aluminum screen wire. It'll work for a while. The screen wire will work on one hand. On the other, it starts breaking apart pretty quickly. It's meant for screen doors, not for beds. And get yourself a mattress pad. I do take PayPal, the most secure way to make any payment online. MasterCard, Visa, the energy cleaner is $285, shipping included. And if you need to send me a check, well, my address is right there at my website at thelibertyman.com. My toll-free online 24 hours a day, here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Taking your questions, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. Well, there's a term that we sometimes use in the preparedness community called armchair commando. These are men or women, could be either one, that does a lot of diligent research to the best of their ability about field operations and so forth, without ever really getting out in the field and training in the real world, out there in the bush, as I say, out in the forest. The knowledge without the training could be a major disaster. What you think works, what you believe works, may or may not be the case once you get out in the field. We all have our own skill sets. We all have our own physical condition. Some of us taller, some of us shorter. Some we have men, we have women. Everybody's got their own unique physical characteristics. So what you're reading about doing and what you intend to do out in the field, once you actually get there, you may find out that you simply can't do that or do it as well as you thought you could. You may find that you have a fear you weren't aware of. A lot of people have fears or phobias, but if you've never been at the edge of a rock, 50 feet off the ground below you, getting ready to repel, you may not know that you have a fear of heights. I think the Army during World War II determined that about 80 feet is about, once you're up 80 feet, you can't get any more scared, no matter how high you get. That's as high as you need to be. You get the maximum fear factor kick in from fear of heights. And I have to admit, the first time I backed off the edge of a cliff, 50 feet above the ground below, with rappelling gear on, that would have been sometime in the late 70s, I guess. Probably around 1977 or 78, along there, before I went back into Special Forces. I have to admit that I was a bit concerned, and I knew I had to trust that equipment. It all comes down to trusting the equipment. You have to, and trusting the instructor who taught you how to. My instructor was a Korean War veteran, a very dear friend. He's since passed on. You have to trust that he knows what he's doing. When it comes to the anchor point or anchor points, plural, that he knows how to tie the proper knots that will stay tied and not come loose and cause injury or death, that the equipment itself is in good condition and ready to be used in the manner in which it was intended to be used, that the Swiss seat that you tied, or you got maybe a factory-made Swiss seat, is in good condition and fits you properly, that the descending hardware could be a figure eight. That's typically what I use. A figure eight descender is in good condition. That the carabiners are in good condition, not worn out or damaged. There's a lot to this, and one of the things you learn in rock climbing is to take care of your equipment, protect your equipment, protect your ropes from being damaged or getting dirty. I've got my ropes are both approaching 40 years old, and they're in excellent condition. I make sure they never get dirty, that they never scrape against the rocks. I always protect the ropes where they go over the edge of the rock. That can be very sharp and very damaging. So I'll bring things with me like an old duffel bag, a field jacket. There are special pieces of equipment specifically made to protect ropes. You can wrap around them also and close off with Velcro. Those work as well also, of course. Make sure that the ropes, if they do get wet, that they get properly dried out before they're put in storage so there won't be any mold grow on the ropes, and so forth. A handy thing to do with your ropes when you first get them is find the middle of the rope and mark it with a magic marker so you know where the middle of the rope is. That can save you a lot of time when you're out in the field getting ready to do some rappelling or climbing, either one. But rock climbing and rappelling is fun. It's fairly inexpensive as hobbies go. If it's done, if you got proper training, have the proper equipment, and you use the equipment and don't exceed your skill level, it can be quite safe. And I've never had any in the different rock climbing and rappelling events that I've been on. I've never seen anybody injured. I've seen some people embarrassed, but never injured. We always use a top rope, for example. No, we don't need to have any. I don't participate and don't encourage people to do freestyle, which is climbing without a top rope. A top rope being a safety rope, typically that goes to a chest harness. It could be a R2 Swiss seat. It doesn't matter. Chest harness is probably better for not getting turned upside down. And the person on belay can belay from above or belay from below. It doesn't matter as long as the equipment's set up properly and everybody knows what's going on. So when you got a top rope and you slip and fall, you can't fall very far, assuming everything's set up right and your person on belay knows what they're doing. You can only fall far enough to humiliate yourself and apologize for slipping. So that's very safe. One of the things that men and women do when they're rappelling, especially young men in their teens and early 20s, is they'll like to do a real hot dog rappel down like their favorite action movie star does. That can be very damaging to both your equipment, your figure eight descender, and your rope, because the heat buildup. I've seen these ropes actually cut into the metal. They get so hot. Believe it or not, they can't actually do that. And at that point, that piece of equipment needs to be made into a wall ornament or thrown away, because once it's damaged, it can't be fixed. It's just, you can't. A friend of mine was rappelling out of a helicopter in the Special Forces, and they were using open gate carabiners. And they used two open gate carabiners that were in opposite directions as a precaution. But both of them the rope happened to get through both of them, and he hit the steel deck. He was propelling onto a barge in the Mississippi River, part of a demonstration. And he hit that deck, that steel deck, really hard. Everybody thought it was part of the demonstration, but he burned his hands trying to slow down his descent with limited success. And he ended up with, I don't recall what the injuries were to his feet and ankles and knees, but he did sustain some injuries there. Military's gone to something they call fast rope. I've only attempted that once unsuccessfully. I got a real nice burn on the calf of one of my legs attempting the fast rope. I obviously wasn't doing it right, but if done properly, it's a lot faster than rappelling. And if you're getting out of a helicopter in a hot LZ landing zone, you want to get on the ground just as soon as possible, because you're so vulnerable between the helicopter and the ground, just hanging on that rope. So very vulnerable. You want to go on the ground as fast as possible. So that's a good technique. I haven't attempted since to successfully do the fast rope, but maybe I'll have that opportunity soon. I would like to have that skill as well. I've made use of my rock climbing and rappelling equipment and skills as a private investigator. Sometimes I would have an assignment where I needed to get up high in a tree to be able to observe and get the evidence I was trying to get for my assignment. Sometimes I was really high up on a tree, and I would use really large metal spikes to build myself a kind of a impromptu ladder to climb up. And then once I was up there, get the evidence I needed and then get back down with proper safety precautions in place, with safety ropes and Swiss seats and so forth, so that I would have very little chance of being injured on that operation. I encourage everybody to get those skills. My wife, Dr. Moore, is a rock climbing instructor. I'm a rock climbing instructor. I haven't taught a class for quite a while, but maybe this coming summer we can do so. We have a very interested group of people here, men and women, in our preparedness group that are always up for learning a new skill. And I haven't mentioned it to these men and women, but there might be some interest. And I just need to find a nice piece of rock for training. About 20 feet is about right. 16 to 20 feet is all you need for training purposes. You don't need to be 50 feet or 60 or 80 feet up in the air. 16 or 20 feet, it's fine to learn the basics of rock climbing and rappelling. It's not nearly as intimidating to have a face of rock that's only 16 or 20 feet tall. We have a place nearby here called Elephant Rocks, and then there's Johnson Shut-ins. And during the off season, which is after Labor Day and before Memorial Day, they do let you use the technical equipment at Johnson Shut-ins, unless that policy's changed. They don't want that activity when there's a lot of tourists around there. And Elephant Rock the same way. It's called bouldering. These massive granite boulders. When I say massive, it's a sight to see. These you can look them up on the internet. I'm sure Elephant Rocks in Missouri. You see these massive granite boulders just sitting there on the ground. I don't know how they got there, but they're there. Beautiful red granite, by the way. And I recall one of our operations, we were practicing bouldering and rappelling, and we had the daughter of one of our students. She was about 12 years old. She must have weighed about 90 pounds, and she just to show the effectiveness of the belay, we had her belay a man who was 225 pounds, and she could successfully do that because of the way the ropes and the equipment was set up, and the increase in her ability to hold up a lot of weight without a whole lot of force. And that impressed everybody that she could do that. And it impressed her. She felt really good about herself that she could stop a 225-pound man from falling with her 90-pound stature. It was a fun day for all of us. And rock climbing and rappelling can be a very fun thing. If you have the right equipment, have the right training, and do everything in a proper and safe manner. That's what I always encourage. Being out in the field, at least around here, moisture is almost always an issue. You have issues with moisture, issues with insects, issues with rodents and snakes. Not too much with the bigger critters like bears and wildcats and mountain lions. They tend to stay away from human beings unless there's some kind of other issue going on. You do not want to get between a bear cub and the mother. You simply don't, and that would not be wise. All these things are things to deal with when you're out in the field, and usually not too big of a deal. We don't have fire ants up here, thank goodness. But in the evening on warm summer nights, mosquitoes can be an issue. They haven't been too much around here for a number of years, but they can be. Ticks and jiggers. Ticks and chiggers are an issue in Missouri. Something about my metabolism, they don't particularly care for me that much anymore. I must be doing something right. But for most people, most of the time, ticks and chiggers can be an issue. There's diseases that these little critters can carry, which makes it even more burdensome to deal with. So you want to check yourself every night for ticks and chiggers, all the nooks and crannies and folds. Here's our break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 13th of February. Well, being out in the field is fun. It can be adventurous. Being out in nature is good for the soul. I took a little walk around the ranch here last night, enjoying the fresh, clean air. The few critters around, and we have a lot less critters in the summertime, in the wintertime, than we do in the warmer months. But there was a few birds flitting around and squirrels in the forest, and it's very quiet and very peaceful here, and it's good for the soul to have a walk in the evening. Now that the weather is going to be warming up a little bit, I'll be taking about a 1 mile walk here every afternoon. Once all my chores are done, I've finished my appointments and meetings and so forth. A 1 mile walk involves walking to the top of a hill, as tall as a 10-story building, up about 100 feet, on uneven ground and back down again. It's good. It's a good little workout. Not a strenuous workout, but a good little workout. I always have a firearm with me. Typically a 22 pistol. That way I can have my arms free and the pistol in a holster, ready to take care of an armadillo. Armadillos are very destructive, and make sure that I just killed one recently with a 22. It was a 22 rifle I happened to be carrying at the time. And we got our last caller here. We got Stephen in North Carolina. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, John. How you doing?
Good. What's in your mind?
Well, I heard something yesterday, so I'm going to parrot what I heard, is that Missouri, I guess it's where you're located, has no illegal immigration problem. Because there's none there. and that English is the language that the state adopted back in 2007. And I was wondering, and I just heard about this yesterday. I haven't researched or anything, and I think that's wonderful. And that's
many states are adopting English as the official language. Missouri did that not too long ago, and you say North Carolina's done it also. That's great.
I didn't know about North Carolina. I live in North Carolina, but that's one of my concerns. Yeah, but I knew you live in Missouri, and I think that's wonderful. And I guess more states have to stand up, I guess.
Right, they do. Okay, anything else, Stephen?
No, that's all I had to ask.
What part of North Carolina are you in, by the way?
I'm in down east. I have Havelock, around Moorhead.
Okay.
Around there.
You're pretty close to the ocean, then, aren't you?
Yeah. I go out in my backyard and catch crab and shrimp and all that.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful state. If the state of North Carolina would allow me to have residency, my time in the Army counts as residency, I never would have left. A beautiful state. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm right down the road from Cherry Point.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Stephen, thank you for the call, sir. We appreciate it. Okay. That's it for the day. Get your medical supplies and energy cleaning, essential oils now while you can, your firearms ammunition. Never, ever give up your guns. Have a fun, safe, productive day, and God bless America.